You may have heard that creativity is a gift that only some are born with. But what if that's a lie? In the following conversation with multi-talented creative Cassie Davis, we look at Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being, and unravel what creativity really means. And it just might change how you see yourself. Welcome back to Promenade.
That's the good stuff.
You bet. Well, hey, hello, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you guys who may not know, the one and only Cassie Davis. Now, I'm going to attempt to list most of the things you do in a single breath, so just wish me luck. You are a abstract artist, a ballet dancer, you're involved in branding, fire breathing, website design, graphic design, movement art, energy work.
Yeah.
Dare I go on?
The list keeps going, really multi-hyphenate.
How do you have enough time to do all these things in one lifetime so far? How are you making this happen?
I think that I am terrified that I won't have enough time to do it all, and that's why I do it all.
The slow creep of time in the back of your mind.
Yeah. Honest to God.
I do want to center some of what we talk about today around Rick Rubin's book. He's a creative inspiration of mine, and he has 3 select quotes I've picked that I kind of want to use as a sounding board for us as we go through the rest of our talk.
Let's do it.
That'd be all right?
Yeah.
Cool. We tend to think of an artist in terms of their output. The real work of an artist is a way of being in the world. How do you feel about that quote? And if so, why?
I am drawn to kind of the curiosity of experience in creating. And I feel like increasingly, the more mediums I try, the more there are commonalities in the creative process and the feeling. And often when I'm creating, it's almost like this meditative state for me. I don't know how you feel, but if I'm painting, I'm like, it's like in Soul, whenever they go, if you've watched that movie and they go into flow state, they're like, they're just like levitating and playing piano and stuff. That happens for me no matter the medium, right? And to me, it's almost like this deep meditative state where my brain can kind of just tell me whatever it needs to tell me about what's happened, what's cooking in my subconscious. And consistently, the lessons that I learn while I'm making things transfer over into other parts of my life. And that's where I feel like what this quote is getting at is like, eventually, if you create enough, it becomes an approach to the world. Like your process and the way you view things and approach things whenever you're making something, it's going to influence the rest of your life, regardless of the medium. I hear people say a lot like, oh, I'm not an artist, or I'm not a painter or a potter, I don't make films, I'm not creative. But then they go and do something, they plan a whole event, or they make their amazing meal plan for the week and it's all beautifully plated. And I'm like, no, you're so creative. You are. You're living a creative life. Just because it's not in a traditional medium doesn't mean that it's not creative.
And you would say, these people, when they say they're not creative, and I've thought of myself in this way before. I used to think I was.
We all
creative.
have, yeah.
Because they're thinking, my output doesn't look like the person
thing.
I think is creative, and thus I must not have that gift or that skill set.
Exactly. But if you flip it to the other half of the quote where it's like, it's actually about the way you approach things. It's not about the output.
Right.
It creates all this freedom to live a life that feels creative instead of looks creative. And I think that's where the good stuff is.
That's where the good stuff is. And that may result, that way of being, it may result in works of art.
It may.
In whatever form that is.
It very well may.
But that may not necessarily be the calling card of being creative. There's a lot of ways to think creatively beyond just being really cool and using oil paint and dancing and
totally
editing or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
That's a beautiful take.
The way I think about it, so I mentioned my dad earlier being a creative person. I have seen him fully take apart a vehicle and put it back together.
That's creativity.
That is creative flow state. Like, he's just winging it. He's just out there. He just knows. He knows his tools. He knows his equipment. He knows his vision. And getting from point A to point B is the creative process for him. But like, most people don't wake up and think, oh, I'm an accountant. I'm going to go do numbers all day. This isn't creative. Like, if we really challenge ourselves to open our minds to what creativity could be outside of what we're taught it could be, we can all live creative lives. Right. I think that's really exciting.
That's beautiful.
Very beautiful.
It's a really beautiful perspective.
Yeah.
You want to hear another one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love your enthusiasm. Failure is simply the information to get where you're going. Is there a time for you where you've experienced failure and it's led to future creative success?
This whole year.
Tell me about it.
I quit my job, my 9-to-5, because I realized I hadn't taken a break from corporate work in my entire career, basically. Wow. And I was really burned out, and I knew that I had creative interests and pursuits. I was already like painting, and I was doing more dance, and I just knew that I wanted to kind of invest my energy in those spaces, and like there was things that I wanted to explore. Like, on the outside, people would look at that and be like, oh, you like did the right thing, you were successful, but it really felt like failure. It felt like I'm leaving, everything that I was taught I'm supposed to want, and that if you don't want this, or that if you're not successful in this, then you are failing. But because of taking that time and that space and really sitting with those feelings, it revealed all these other paths to me that made me so much happier, so much more fulfilled, taught me so much more about myself, brought all of my crafts to these places where I feel really proud of them. And so I do think that failure can teach us so much.
I would say I resonate with this heavily, especially right now. I have found that in order for me to listen to what I need to do next in my life and creatively, I have to have space and I have to have quiet.
Yes.
And, I gave the corporate experience a try.
Same.
And I found that it introduced, along with a lot of resources and security and the peace that comes with that, which I'll never discount, it introduced so much noise and distraction into my life that I found myself less and less happy. And I left that job. I finished a contract for about 6 months doing that and stepped away. I was lucky enough to be able to go travel.
Yeah.
Just once again, not everybody has
I did the same thing
to do.
I was like, bye.
But
see everybody.
And I was thousands of miles away from everybody I know and love, alone in another country. And say what people will about the stereotype of I need to go get lost somewhere to find.
You kind of do, though.
I think you do.
I think
sometimes.
It's true.
I don't think you necessarily have to take it to the extreme of, flying halfway across the world to go find that. But I think stepping back from that much noise, when there's time, when there's room, allows the space to hear what's next.
Totally.
And so I feel what you're saying.
I think there's also an element of when something doesn't work out that you've been working on or that you hoped would work out, there's sadness and there's grief and there's these lost hopes. And failure is a very tender space to be as a human. And I think that if we treated it from that perspective and looked at it as a celebration of all this work that we've done and look at these dreams that we dreamed and we chased and they didn't work out, but look at how much I learned and how this is probably going to influence what I make next, because that's what it always does. It always gets me closer. Every time I've failed, I've always gotten dramatically closer to whatever actually feels aligned. Looking back in retrospect, it never actually feels like failing. Like, I'm excited about failing now. Like, at this point, I'm like, all right, let's fail real fast, because let's just like get that out of the way and let's get closer to what we need. And I think that solitude is part of that grieving process. You have to like rest if
That's
you
a very good
go
point.
that hard, you know?
I think it's important to be alone
Yes.
as well. Learn to make peace with solitude.
Solitude, not loneliness, solitude. You know, when we were all in like middle school and we were doing science fairs, and they're teaching you about hypotheses and the scientific method. It's just the scientific method. It's just like your dream is a hypothesis, and you go and you test it, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And then if it doesn't, you like make a new hypothesis and you try it again until you figure out what the results are, what the results you want are. So
This reminds me of the old story of Thomas Edison, the man with the light bulb.
my man.
They said he tried to make the fucking light bulb 1,000 times.
Yep.
And failed 900 plus times.
You have a dream.
And then he succeeded.
Yep.
But then people asked him about it, and they were like, what about all these failures? And he said, I learned 999 ways not to make a light bulb.
Exactly. That's exactly
Still
what it
digging out
is.
the
Yes. Yeah.
Thomas Edison made it out the mud. Never forget.
R.I.P.
In the trenches. No matter what tools you use to create, the true instrument is you. And through you, the universe that surrounds us all comes into focus. What do you think Ruben means when he says that as you use yourself as an instrument, the rest of the universe comes into focus?
I think
Deep thoughts, big brain.
Deep thoughts, big brain. My brain's working. I was thinking about this earlier as well, but essentially, kind of like what I was saying earlier about how the feeling of creating is the same no matter what medium I'm personally using.
The flow.
Yeah, like the flow feels the same. I think that we are all unique beings, right? Like, no one of us are exactly the same. And regardless of what medium you use, the fact that you're the one picking it up makes it inherently unique.
No one's done it the way I want to do it.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Even if you're just like mimicking, duplicating, learning, literally no one has picked up that guitar and strummed it the way you did just then. Like, nobody's painted the paint that way. Nobody's taken the picture like that. I think that there's that sense of, I guess, alchemy or magic is the way I think about it. Like, it's literally fucking magic to be a human and be able to create. And the fact that we all have that power to just make things from thin air.
I think of whispers from the universe, in the sense that the more we tune our instrument, our body, our mind, our soul, as we tune these things in to that right frequency, that we start to get those messages.
Yeah.
And I think another way you can imagine a radio tuning into the correct frequency is like a camera focusing the lens. And
I like that analogy.
The more you make yourself receptive to the ideas and possibilities that a creative flow helps you unlock, or let's say tap into, the more the camera lens shifts into focus.
Yeah, I like the analogy of the camera lens focusing, this idea of, you know, I think we all know that feeling, like feeling a little out of focus, feeling a little blurry. But if you can find those practices and those things that connect you, we're gonna get a little woo-woo here, but that feeling, that kind of like sense of spirituality that is just just kind of baked into the human experience, particularly through creative activities. I feel like that's kind of a direct way to tap into that. And whenever you're doing that, I think it focuses the lens. Like, at least for me, it does.
What do you think is the best piece of advice that someone's given you in recent memory?
I actually got a really amazing piece of advice earlier this year that I know, just know, I'm going to use it for years to come because I've already used it so much this year.
What's that?
So in February, I went to Costa Rica on a circus training retreat, and I got invited on this trip by a friend, and it's all professional performers. There was like 20 of us. Literally, these people, their livelihood is
like Cirque du
performing.
Soleil type people.
Like the lady who puts on the training has like performed with Cirque du Soleil. If you Google fire performer, her picture pops up. Like,
wow. Okay,
and so
cool.
I basically had to do, she screens everyone that comes on their retreat. You kind of have to like interview.
Yeah.
She, you know, gets on the phone with me. We're on the Zoom call, and I was telling her like, these are the things that I do. I'm really excited about this. I'm still kind of learning, but I had this background, and I just was very insecure, very imposter syndrome-y. Just, you could read in everything I was saying that I just wasn't sure if I like deserved to be there. And
wow.
She stopped me and was like, I bet that you know more than you think. And as soon as she said that, I was like, okay, all right, cool. Like, vote of confidence. I love it. And then I went on the trip, and the whole week I realized that I knew so much more than I thought. Like, now it's become this mantra that I say to myself anytime I feel like imposter syndrome, I just go, you know what? You know more than you think. You just got to go. And every single time I go, and I always know more than I think that I do. And I'm always impressed at how I adapt when I don't know.
Wow.
So I think that's the biggest one that I've had recently.
You know more than you think you know.
You know more than you think you know.
It's simple.
Seriously.
Simple but effective.
It's crazy.
Each conversation like this just makes me very thankful to have such creative, talented, thoughtful people in my life. It blows my mind.
Thanks. Likewise. I feel the same. Yeah, I always really enjoy our combos. You're one of my favorite people to talk about creative stuff with. So thanks for having me.
I'm honored. Speaking of honor, it's been an honor for you guys to hang out with us. If you know anyone else fascinating like Cassie that you think I should talk to, please drop it down in the comments below. Other than that, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next Sunday, all right?
Bye.